Of course I made this video. Of course I would make a video talking about the Sonic Origins cutscenes. I mean, come on, what do you take me for? You should have known this was coming. There was no way that someone that likes the classic Sonic stories and universe as much as me would not be talking about the new cutscenes in Sonic Origins. Really, this is the only thing I was actually looking forward to with the release of this game, and they definitely did not disappoint. I very, very much like the animations here in Sonic Origins. I think they're great. But of course, like always, when it comes to me and Sonic story stuff, we are going to be analyzing this at a bit of a deeper level and really getting in there with the nitty-gritty details and stuff, so get yourself ready. Of course, first we have the opening cutscene, which there's not really much to say here. It's just a bunch of iconic moments from the Sonic games, now animated and really nice looking. And I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that all of the poses that Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles do at the opening on the emblem is all poses that they do in the original Sonic games on the title screens, which is a nice little detail. I appreciate that. Now, on to the opening cutscene of Sonic 1, and once again, we don't really have very much to talk about here. It's pretty much just Sonic's doing his thing, and then he sees some animals in trouble due to Eggman's robots. He takes care of that, and then realizes that Eggman is up to no good, and goes to stop him. Extremely simple, and not really much going on here, but if you've actually read the manual of Sonic 1, that's pretty much all the story is. So while it is slight, it is also accurate to the events of Sonic 1, though I would say that there is one thing that I wish they had put in here, which would be Eggman's reason for coming to South Island in the first place. Personally, ideally, I would have loved it if these cutscenes were such that you could entirely get the story of these original games without having to, look up the manual stories or anything like that. And unfortunately, you just can't really do that. I have seen some people that are a little bit disappointed in these cutscenes because they are very short and they don't really have a whole lot going on. But you gotta understand that, they were under a budget. This is only 5 minutes or so of new animation here, so they did the best with what they could. And under the circumstances that the team making these cutscenes had to work with, I think they did a very good job. That said, I would have really loved if this cutscene for Sonic 1 started with a shot of, Eggman flying towards South Island, and we look on his little monitor on the Eggmobile or something that he's got a radar of Chaos Emeralds that's, going crazy like he's getting really close. And then we have an ominous shot of Eggman laughing as he flies towards South Island, giving you the idea that Eggman is searching for the Chaos Emeralds and they're on this island, so that way you actually know what his motivation is. Because just with this cutscene alone, all we see is him kidnapping animals, and that's all we get. But, it is what it is, and I still like the cutscene. Obviously, all these cutscenes are extremely well animated, and the music and sound effects are really done very well to match with the animation. The quality is definitely not something I can complain about at all with these cutscenes. It's just, I wish they could have had a little bit more budget to do more, so we could get just a little bit extra story details in here, but oh well. By the way, can I just stop here and say I absolutely love this shot because I've complained in many of my Sonic story videos about the visual aesthetic of the series being very inconsistent and not looking like the world of Sonic as I would think that it looks like just by playing the games. And this shot to me is basically exactly what I would love the Sonic world to look like. Something where it looks like this is a believable place that people and animals could actually live in, but at the same time, it has those abstract elements that you would see in the Sonic universe. Odd patterns on the terrain, weird geometric plant stuff, and, loops and hills and stuff that definitely don't seem like the kind of natural environments that you would expect in the normal world, but these things just kind of exist in the universe of Sonic. Personally, I definitely prefer a world vision of Sonic like this, as opposed to what we see in, the Sonic CD intro cutscene, which basically just looks like the normal real world. Now, for the ending cutscene of Sonic 1, this one is pretty interesting. Obviously, this is the good ending of the game, where Sonic has collected all the Chaos Emeralds and is about to use them to undo all the damage that Eggman has done to South Island. But they have inserted this moment here where the Chaos Emeralds kind of give Sonic a vision of West Side Island and the Chaos Emeralds traveling there. And I find this scene to be very interesting. I've seen a couple of people commenting that, oh, thank God, they finally explained what the hell is going on with the Chaos Emeralds being on all these different islands in these games. Here we get to just see that after the events of Sonic 1, the Chaos Emeralds move towards West Side Island, and the 7th Chaos Emerald just joins them, or it was on West Side Island the whole time, or something like that. So, as it turns out, there were only 7 Chaos Emeralds all along after all. But, not exactly. I don't really think this means that this is how it always was supposed to be in the original games. It's very possible that this is their attempt to retcon things in order to get the classic games more in line with the current interpretation of the Chaos Emeralds that there are only 7 of them. But if you watch part 2 of my classic Sonic story and lore video, I've come to believe that originally in the classic Sonic games that probably wasn't the case. Another thing I would point out that kind of demonstrates to me that this is attempts at retconning is just look at the Chaos Emeralds in the cutscenes in this game. The shape of them is the shape of the current Chaos Emeralds, you know, in that like diamond cut shape. But originally the Chaos Emeralds were not that shape. In fact, they changed shape and color depending on the Sonic game. In Sonic 2, instead of there being a blue Chaos Emerald, there's a pink one instead. And then if you look at something like Sonic the Fighters, then there's like an orange Chaos Emerald, and there's like another more reddish purple one, and all kinds of shit like that. So you could look at the different shapes and colors of the Chaos Emeralds as evidence that these are supposed to be different Chaos Emeralds, but at the same time, the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic 3 are supposed to be the same ones from Sonic 2, and they also look different in that game than how they did in Sonic 2, so maybe they were just very inconsistent with what the Chaos Emeralds looked like in these old games because they didn't really care very much. But something I want to point out is that people seem to only really be concerned with the current state of the Sonic canon. Like, nowadays, it's very clearly established that there are only 7 Chaos Emeralds, and so retroactively, we have to try to apply that logic to the classic Sonic games like Sonic Origins kind of does here. But personally, I don't really see it that way. I don't see the current canon as the almighty version of the canon that we absolutely have to go with. Things have been changed over time. There have been many retcons over the course of the Sonic series, making the originally intended vision for the series no longer the case. But when we're looking at those older games that were made with that concept of the series in mind, I personally look at the game with its own intended version of the series. So we could look at the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic 2 and how they don't match the Chaos Emeralds in any other Sonic game and just go, they retconned that, they're supposed to look like all the other Chaos Emeralds. But originally, that probably wasn't the intention, so as far as I'm concerned, those are different Chaos Emeralds that we see on West Side Island as opposed to the ones found on South Island. Though really, if you want to talk about respecting the original vision, then most likely, quite frankly, they probably just didn't care and didn't think about it that much. Though I do kind of find this whole vision thing a little bit odd because it almost seems to imply to a certain degree that maybe Sonic was actually seeking out West Side Island to find the Chaos Emeralds there, which is definitely not what happens in the manual of Sonic 2. In that game's manual, Sonic just happens to land on West Side Island out of coincidence. Which, again, it's possible that's still the case here, but, you know, whatever. This is just me overanalyzing this stuff. I think really they just wanted to have some connecting tissue between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 here, so they threw this in just because. Now, Sonic CD's intro wisely chooses to focus on Amy, as the game already had its original intro that entirely focuses on Sonic coming to Little Planet, so naturally for the new cutscene for the game we focus on Amy and her reason for being here as stated in the original game's manual, which would be due to her tarot cards. I'm so happy to see that they got Amy's fortune telling in this intro cutscene here. And she's looking at her cards, and they are telling her that she is in the wrong place at the wrong time, and something bad is about to happen. But thankfully, she is also going to find her knight in shining armor that is going to save her. And interestingly, in the original manual of Sonic CD, the reason why Amy goes to Little Planet is still kind of left a little vague. All it says in the manual is that the cards told her to come to Little Planet, but the reason for that is never specified. A lot of people, myself included, make the assumption that it was something along the lines of like, Amy is going to have a fated encounter with the love of her life at Little Planet, and that's why she decides to go there, which is the reason that she immediately falls head over heels for Sonic when she runs into him, but that never is actually explicitly stated in the game's manual, and they kind of were true to that in this here, in that it does mention that she's going to encounter Sonic, but, you know, it's still kind of left a little bit vague. Though personally, I would be totally fine if they more explicitly just said Amy is looking to find the love of her life due to what the tarot cards told her. That just kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And I guess it is kind of worth mentioning that it is a little bit jarring going from the new cutscenes to the original Sonic CD cutscenes, because, you know, art style and animation style is, like, completely different here. You get a bit of whiplash going on. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm totally fine with that. It doesn't bother me at all. These animations were made like 30 years ago. For Sonic Origins, they wanted to have this one consistent style across all the games, and I think it works very well. It just creates a small amount of inconsistency in the presentation when we're specifically looking at Sonic CD, which I don't really think is that much of a problem. And then as far as the ending of CD goes, we get some more connective tissue between the games, as Sonic has the tornado here, and he's going to go fly off. And, you know, one last little shot of Amy, who now her tarot cards are basically foreseeing the events of Sonic 2. And then Sonic flies off to his next adventure, which leads us into the intro of Sonic 2, which is my favorite of the new cutscenes made for Sonic Origins. I really like this one a lot. We kinda hit all the important beats for Tails here in just this small amount of time. We get to see him being bullied for his two tails, Sonic deals with the bullies, and then Tails starts following after Sonic, and interestingly, they've decided to imply that in trying to keep up with Sonic, that is how Tails discovered his ability to fly, which, I mean, sure, whatever, that's fine. I don't really have an issue with adding something like that. But again, we are unfortunately missing a couple of scenes that I would have really liked to see. You know, Tails discovering the tornado and Eggman bombing the island looking for the Chaos Emeralds and all that. That would have been very cool. Again, we really don't have a motivation or understanding of what Eggman is doing, or even the fact that he's on this island just by watching this opening cutscene. I actually would have really liked if during that establishing shot of West Side Island, we had Sonic flying the tornado toward the island, and just like it's mentioned in the original manual of Sonic 2, you just have a little bit of a sparkle of Eggman flying in from the distance. And then you could have had that scene of him bombing the island and his robots looking for the Chaos Emeralds, and then that would have conveyed exactly what's going on here to the audience. As it is, it's still missing some stuff, but, you know, it gets the important things across, which is Tails' character growth. By the way, before we move on, I really want to say that I appreciate the inclusion of these two bully characters here. First of all, I just like their character designs. I think they're pretty fun characters. But also the fact that they've decided to show us new Sonic characters that are not like established Sonic characters, that are just kind of like random animal people that exist in the universe. I really like that kind of thing because the Sonic series and like what the universe of Sonic is supposed to look like has been so vague for so long, and that's why there's so much confusion about what the universe of Sonic is. That's why so many people, when we got to the adventure stuff, started complaining, why are there suddenly a bunch of humans in Sonic? Because it wasn't clear whether or not there was humans before, because we never saw any of them. But then once you get to all those 2000s games, all we see is humans everywhere, and as far as we see, there's only like 15 or 20 animal characters, which are the Sonic characters that we keep seeing time and time again. It took until Forces and this game here to finally show us just rando animal NPC characters that are just, you know, existing in the world. We've never seen like an anthro-animal character like Civilization or Town or anything like that in any of the Sonic games before, and that just makes it confusing about what the heck this universe looks like. So by showing us just some random animal characters, it kind of makes this world feel more alive, like there are other animal people living on South Island and West Side Island and all that, we just never happen to see them. I definitely hope this kind of thing starts to become more regular going forward with the Sonic series, because I really like it. And then for the ending of Sonic 2, all we get is some shots of the Death Egg crashing back down to Earth and about to collide with Angel Island. Which, that works. You don't really need any extra resolution to the ending of Sonic 2 as it already was, but I do wish we could have seen Angel Island actually falling out of the sky and creating a tidal wave in the ocean and something like that. Because again, we're kind of just missing seeing the island fall out of the sky, and so if you didn't actually know, then you would watch this cutscene and then go straight to playing Sonic 3, and you wouldn't necessarily connect the dots that this is the same island and it fell out of the sky once the Death Egg hit it. It would have been nice if that could have been conveyed clearly, but, you know, budget limitations. And as far as the opening of Sonic 3, they did the obvious thing that you should do and have the meeting of Eggman and Knuckles and how Eggman manages to trick Knuckles into thinking Sonic is a bad guy. This is the no-brainer thing to do with this opening cutscene, and I think it's very well done. Of course, they do opt to omit all of the stuff of Knuckles before the Death Egg crashes on Angel Island, with his Chaos Emeralds disappearing in a flash of light, which I'm not really surprised by, because by not showing that, we don't have to acknowledge the potential that maybe there are more than 7 Chaos Emeralds, because that is not the current canon of Sonic that we want to be going with. Which I do find very unfortunate, because I really would have liked some clarification on exactly what that scene was supposed to be, which we sadly did not get. And also, technically, the circumstances of Knuckles and Eggman meeting here is a little bit different than it is in the manual, but whatever, this kind of just smooths everything out and makes it a lot simpler and cleaner, so I'm totally fine with this. And of course, we have the ending to Sonic 3, which is just a gag of what becomes of Eggman after the events of the game. And I think this is a very cute and amusing scene, and a perfect way to finish off these game stories. You know, Eggman at the end of it all getting what he deserves. And then finally, we have the ending of Sonic Origins overall, and this is basically just like an action coolness montage of just the characters doing a bunch of cool stuff, and I really like it a lot. Just a lot of personality and fun, which I'm all for. Though, one thing I do want to touch on at this point is the treatment of Amy in Sonic Origins, because I do find it a bit strange. Because, like, she's on the cover of the game, and she's treated in the opening and ending cutscene of Sonic Origins like, you know, she's part of the crew, she's one of the main characters, just like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. But then, of course, in the actual games, Amy is not that at all. Amy is like a super minor character in Sonic CD. I mean, fuck, including all of these new cutscenes in Sonic Origins, Amy has what, like 2-3 minutes of screen time total? Like, as far as the original Sonic games go, Amy was not at all, like, a main character. She was a minor character, a side character, and that was pretty much it. Metal Sonic 2, honestly, Amy and Metal didn't really start to become more prominent recurring characters until they started to show up in the spin-off games, and Amy didn't really become a real full-fledged main character until Sonic Adventure. As far as the core original Sonic games go, Amy was barely a character at all. But of course, nowadays, Amy is treated like, you know, a main character just as important as anyone else. And that's mainly just due to the fact that she is one of the other prominent recurring characters that originates from the core classic Sonic games. And I'm totally fine with trying to prop up Amy and make her more of a main character along with all the other ones, but it's a bit jarring that Sonic Origins tries to act like Amy is a main character, but then when you actually play the games, that's not the case at all. Basically, I'm saying that it would have been really nice if they made like a non-canon playable Amy that you could have unlocked in Sonic Origins, but of course that would have required work, and as we can tell from the state of Sonic Origins, work was not really in the cards when it came to putting this collection together. While we're here, I also want to make a quick note of all the islands that you can see in the main menu of Sonic Origins, because I really like all the details they put into these. Obviously, these are not like exact recreations of the islands and exactly what they look like and their exact sizes and placements and all that. But I do still appreciate these little models here, because we haven't really gotten a good look at a lot of these islands due to all the games being, you know, pixel art sprite things. You know, we didn't really get very good looks at, like, South Island and West Side Island before, but now we finally do. I also like the detail that Sonic CD's island is much larger than the islands of the other games, almost kind of like it could be implying that it's not really an island and it's supposed to be like a mainland continent or something like that. It's left very uncertain, and I do appreciate that kind of detail, because it was uncertain in the original game. And that's all I really have to say about the new cutscenes in Sonic Origins. Just a quick little video going over these things. I really like these new cutscenes, even if they're not exactly what I would have liked ideally, but, you know, they had limitations, and within those limitations, I think they did a very good job. And it really doesn't bother me at all that these are not like 100% accurate to what was in the original Japanese manuals, because, you know, you have to adapt some things and kind of clean up some stuff and just make it work a little bit better. This was a very interesting and cool new interpretation, new way of telling those original stories found in the manuals of the Sonic games that were not properly told before. Even if it's not super accurate, I do really like that to some degree they got to get told here. So yeah, definitely big thumbs up for me of these cutscenes. These are great. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.